Hi everyone, welcome to the Aware, Relaxed, Connected podcast. Join me as we explore approaches and orientations towards cultivating the physical body, the internal landscapes, the mind, and our relationship with reality as a whole. I'm your host, Craig Mallet. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast. Before I get started with this week's very nice interview with my good friend Soisci, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update about the things I'm up to at this point in time. So first of all, and something I probably need to get in the habit of mentioning a bit more regularly on the podcast, is I do have a Patreon now. And if you don't know about Patreon, it's a service where you can support me with a monthly donation of some level, and there are a few tiers there that you can choose to support me with, and depending on the tier you get access to different things. One of the things that's happening on the Patreon besides the podcast, patrons get early access to the podcast, usually almost a week, sort of 4 or 5 days. You'll get access to the podcast before everyone else. The other thing that's happening there is that I am doing a practice of the week. So this is a follow-along video that is occasionally a recording from my Zoom classes that I run, and occasionally just made specifically for the patrons. That's posted mostly on Mondays, sometimes on Tuesdays if my Monday gets a bit thrown. And it'll be a follow-along. So you can just tune in and get a practice. And the idea is that you can repeat that practice for the whole week. And then the week after, there'll be a new practice. And so if you're registered to the Patreon, you basically get ongoing practice, ongoing structure for your training. We'll weave in and out of all sorts of ideas, and you'll see it really centers around the heart of my work, which is the opening and releasing stuff I explained in a previous podcast. And yeah, so it's a fantastic tool if you're unsure where to start. Just jump in, start following the weekly videos. Every week you get something new, so it's going to stay fresh and varied. I'll do some seated practices, I'll do some standing practices. Occasionally I'll even throw in some lying practices, and it should start to give you like nice exposure over time to all the various facets of the training I do. As well as the Patreon, I also offer a mentorship. So if this training is really interesting to you and my approach and my philosophy and things like that are interesting to you, then shoot me a message and I can tell you some of the details of that. The Patreon can be found at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/aware, relaxed, connected, same as the name of the podcast. And the mentorship details can be found at my website. It's craigmallet.com /mentorship. So check those out. I'll throw some links in the show notes as well for this episode. So that's all from me. Let's get on with the podcast. I think you will really enjoy this episode. Soisci is a wealth of knowledge and has so much experience. Just listen and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. I am here with my friend Soisci. Soisci is actually in Barbados right now, I believe, traveling a lot recently, so a little hard to keep up with the travels, but in Barbados at the moment. And we have been friends for a number of years. I think we connected first in Sydney in 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. And it was one of those friendships that just kind of immediately was like, have we been good friends for a really long time? It was super strange, in a good way. And I've been really glad to be involved in Soisci's journey. She's been through a lot of transformation, a lot of change. I'll let her talk about that. And it very much followed the same tone that my changes happened, where I went from this very like skill-based, performance-based pursuit, athletic-based pursuit, to realizing that wasn't actually going to fulfill me, to kind of coming into more internal-based work with the movement-y stuff as a frame or a inspiration for that, but the tone changes significantly. So I'd really like to hear a bit more of your story. I know a good deal of it, but the listeners may not know any of it, or they might know you a little bit. But yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about where you've come from and your whole crazy journey from the Thai boxing to the movement culture to where you are now.
Yeah, totally. Like you say, it is kind of it feels a little crazy to describe to outside people verbally. Although in my own experience and context, it's very normal, and there are even certain patterns that come up. But my movement journey started. I think if I just like go before I started the movement journey as a child, I felt very kind of weak and intimidated by the world. And I always had a very strong nature connection and a super inquisitive mind that was not satisfied with the information and answers that the world and my adult carers were offering me. Like the questions I would ask were just, I was like, you're not understanding my question, like, where do we come from? Why are we here? Why, like, what is the point of this existence? What is God? What is universe? Um, and I felt a deep nature connection. So through nature, I enjoyed being physical, like playing in the dirt, climbing trees, playing with animals. I spent the first 8 years of my life in different parts of Africa. So my father moved for his work. And when I went to school, I was um, trying to like find an identity. Like there's this expectation, like what's Soishi going to be? Like what's her job as an adult going to be, or what's she good at? And I think I was kind of good at art, as in I enjoyed it. But when it came to like the sciences or even physical education, it looked like there was no potential. There was just like this veil there. So in PE class, yeah, like the reports would be like, oh, she's just not really made to be physical. And I felt kind of physically pathetic as well. Um, Basic things like it didn't help when I were doing cross country running. That was when I was in boarding school in Kenya when I was 7, and in Kenya everyone's a runner. So I was like in the slowest group, and like it was like me and the fat Indian kid at the back. And I was like, okay, I just can't let him beat me. But
Mm.
yeah, it was just like tough, but like couldn't catch a ball, hated cold water when we had swimming, and getting a stitch when I was running. So just thinking like I'm obviously not made for this, because that was how it was measured. And then at 10, we were living in Italy, which is where I was born, and I only spent that 1 year living there. A school friend introduced me to gymnastics, and I really enjoyed it. And that kind of unlocked some, like, all these physical skills really quickly for me. I guess if I am interested, I just dive in. And if I'm not interested, there's this like, I can't do it type thing.
Yeah, and sorry if I can just jump in there because that's a really super important point, right? Lots of people in any of these practices, whatever they may be, if they're not interested and they're forcing themselves to do it because someone else says they should do it, it's often going to go in a kind of sour direction somehow, and the development won't be there. Or even maybe if the technical skill still arises through a kind of forceful effort, it's not the same tone. It doesn't have the same flavor as someone who pursues it like you're talking about now, where you really actually want to go in and you're kind of intrinsically motivated. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to jump in and just really highlight that because that'll be important for anyone on a journey like this, and I think also for your story and mine too. So kind of the same thing.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that absolutely resonates and is an important, like, key thing for all the listeners and for us, right? Yeah, so that like intrinsic motivation and and just moving away from like you should like the shoulds, I think, are so harmful, right? They just like, it's almost like a cage.
Mhm.
Whereas the curiosity, a very spontaneous, pure desire is like, I don't know, like entering a forest is very different. It's not just like fitting into the cage.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I think like there was also some fear-based element though in the background, because I did believe myself to be like kind of pathetic, not just physically, but I was like, this world is such a harsh place. I don't really know how to be in it. And my coach was the first person, the gymnastics coach, who, when he looked at me, he saw that I had potential and he verbalized it and he showed me in how he trained me. And I was like, someone in this world believes that I can be something. And that sparked something in me. And I think that's where I went from like not being able to touch my toes to doing like within weeks. Like, of course, I was 9 years old, so it can happen like that anyway. But yeah, doing splits and back walkovers and fearless with acrobatics as well, which is not something I embody now. Like the adult fear has kicked in. Um, so long story short, we moved countries continually. So I often didn't get to keep up what I fell in love with, and I would find a new sport. But after gymnastics, I didn't find what I wanted. We were in Hong Kong. That was a very, it felt like a very hostile environment for my like temperament and nature and composition. So that was a very rough period of my life where everything kind of fell apart and changed, and I had to learn to become a new person as I entered teenage ages. And after that, we moved to Barbados, which is where I am now. And I found wushu, or wushu found me. So that same spark came, and the same like nurturing relationship with the coach came. But I had this desire to, I think I developed the taste for like, I want to upskill, because the coach was like, can you touch your nose to your toes? And I was like, no, but as like this like competitive part of me woke up, and I was like, I want to unlock this stuff. And I actually, he's like, you could actually like compete, and like we send you internationally if you give it like a year or so, like you can totally unlock that. And I felt this like hunger to do that. But I moved countries again, and so on and so forth. But that's when I got into different types of martial arts, which eventually led me to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then my main sport was Muay Thai, where I did at a professional level for 5 years. And um, that was maybe in the early years was like really wanting to upskill, but I didn't just want to collect skills. I wanted to um, evolve myself through fighting as a sport, right? And it was very important. I think it was a very healing um, part of my life, because I was not in any form inclined towards internal practices, but they are inside of the martial arts in some form. And there was so much pain and anger and aggression inside of me. But as someone who was very afraid and believed themselves to be weak, I was also very non-confrontational. So it taught me how to play and communicate in a different way. And I never saw an enemy in the ring. I saw a mirror that was helping me to overcome my own fears and inhibitions, and including things like in the beginning, if I'd land really clean, hard shots on my opponent, I'd feel so bad. And I would, under my breath, be apologizing while I would make my body continue to make the action. And in time, I learned that, it's such a mutually respectful and beneficial relationship with the opponent, where without them, without each other, you don't have any feedback, any progress, so you need like a well matched human there, and you have this magical journey. And it was in fighting that when I experienced what we can call as flow state, that gave me the experience of a meditative state, which is like total presence, free from emotion, thought, and even physical sensation. So it's almost like the three centers are like neutralized. You're not in the persona and in the bodily identification, because during the match, the body produces all the hormones needed that you don't even um, it's you're not affected by the pain and damage. Only after the body cools down and like your legs and ribs and eyes swell up and you're trying to go to bed and there's no comfortable position, that kicks in. But during it, it's almost like a video game where you're like, oh, like don't get another one on your thigh, because even though it doesn't hurt, the thigh will give up. So it's almost like this like um software in the background is running, and it's so impersonal, but it's like a wise guiding voice. And from there, I had been studying anthropology at university while I was fighting, and I thought that I was still like trying to figure out, okay, I love martial arts and fighting, but what's my real job going to be? Like, I get paid for this, but I buy like my groceries and my anti-inflammatories, and that's about it. It's not gonna sustain me. Or sometimes I would just break even because you're paying the coach for privates and maybe going for like more massages and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, I'll still need like a real job. So I thought I was going to go back and continue with a master's or an MPhil in anthropology. But in my gap year, I went to Thailand to fight full time, to train and fight full time. And in that time, I realized that I wanted to work with the body. I didn't want to be in an office. Um, and I had asked my father, who at the time was working for the United Nations, like he was like, oh, you could get like an internship and see how you feel in that environment, working with anthropology, and see if you want to pursue it. And I learned, I asked, would I be fulfilled? And he said, you would be materially very fulfilled by the packages they give you. Your kids got school, you got house, you got all the goodies, you get to travel and live where you like. But your work, um, without giving up too much information on those sectors, um, I could see myself becoming a whistleblower and maybe ending up in jail. So it like they just didn't sit well with me, and I said, okay, that's not going to be a career path for me. So I moved back to Hong Kong and worked at like a global gym. It was like a super high end. Everyone's like wealthy and Botoxed up and looking amazing.
That
And I worked,
music is always playing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and I started working as a Thai boxing coach, and that was brutal because I was holding pads for like 9 to 10 people a day. And I was like, and I was still training and fighting, but I was like, okay, this is so hard on the body. So then I trained up to be like a personal trainer who they got paid more for some reason, and they just stand there and count some numbers. It's like, okay, this is more sustainable and I can keep my energy for my own training. And from there, I eventually met my first generalist movement teacher, Ido Portal, and had to make a choice between continuing my professional career fighting or training with him, because his school was very, very demanding, and I tried to sustain both. So I did my retirement fight in Japan, which I wasn't sure if it was going to be my retirement, but once I got there, I knew it was. It was completely unsustainable to train in both. So I chose the path that I felt would give me and my work more longevity, and it was a good choice. But from there, most of the playful aspects and any form of creativity and exploration quickly died away. And it felt like I only caught this a few years in. I was there for maybe 4 years or so with the school. I
And you were
felt
in the
very
inner circle, right? You were deep in the school, right? You weren't just participating, engaging.
yeah, I never did any online coaching with them. It was all in person. Um, we had at the time a team of 8 people who were teaching assistants for Ido, and he would bring us, like, I was the Asia person, and he had like the Germany person and the Israel person, US person. So when he would teach in Asia, he would bring me to like assist and do stuff like that. And we would meet as a team and train together, like in specific countries for specific team training, and report back and then have our own like program. So yeah, I was very, very, very closely involved. And this is before like he really grew and became even more rich and famous than um, he was then. So after a few years, I became obsessed with collecting skills. So like I would just unlock things, and it felt pretty awesome. There was like a fulfillment for each skill that I unlocked, but it was very short-lived. And it would be replaced with like a bigger void and fear, because then I had to move on to the next thing, right? And you're supposed to be humble and not really celebrate your achievements, even though you've worked like a donkey's ass, like training, I don't know, 6 hours of strength training a day, plus like all the other stuff thrown in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so just for some context, I don't know how many of the listeners realize how hardcore this schedule is, right? The going from the Thai boxing, which was world class. You were world champion at one point, right? Or
yeah, 2011, I won
yeah.
a world title bout.
Yeah, so this is like serious level training. This isn't casual engagement with training. This is professional level, like 6 to 8 hours every day, no breaks kind of level of training, and sometimes more than that. So it's like a full-time job, and it's incredibly physically demanding as well. So yeah, I think some of the people who are tuning into this podcast might not have a sense of the depth of that and the intensity of training like that. So maybe you can like dig into that a little bit more because it is like you're saying, it's completely unsustainable, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it was so good to have the contrast between the like professional Muay Thai training and the generalist, I put with like inverted commas, movement training. With sport, I think it's been around longer. So there's a system that kind of works at the elite level, or like professional level where I was at. Of course, you do it does get very intense, and people get weeded out, because otherwise everyone would just be professional, or everyone could win a belt. But like in sport, you have seasons, right? So like you're maybe 8 weeks out from a match, and you know where you're at, you're building, and then you get really intense, and then you kind of taper off, and you have specific like rest days, and there's like there's seasons, right? And after a match, depending how your body's doing and when your next one is lined up, like you may have like a week off, or like fighters are pretty normal people, you know, they love movies and junk food and partying or whatever it like. Yeah, so you get to like include the rest of life outside of fight camp, which is leading up to it. So it's very intense, and while you are young, it is sustainable. Of course, the different schools have different styles. Often, like the Eastern European, they're very, very rough style, or some of the very traditional camps in Thailand that don't have much foreigners also can be like, okay, by the age of 15, the person has 200 something fights, but their kind of body's already starting to struggle. But I think I was lucky. I just or a bit smarter. Like I always did. I paid attention to what I was eating. I would do a warm up. I would do a lot of self healing just without education, just intuitively take care of things. I always like stretched after. Um, like whereas a lot of the male athletes would like arrive down a lot of like energy drinks, which I was also having energy drinks before, whether it was coffee or something else. Um, and then just like jump in the shower and eat. Whereas I thought more about outside of just the performance part. Um, but it was more sustainable. And the only really bad injury I had was a concussion when I got knocked out in one fight. And I knew that that was part of the deal, that could happen, that big injury or thing. But other than that, I never really had big injuries. Like you'd get like massive hematomas that take a few weeks to heal and stuff, but not like a broken bone or chronically niggling thing. That didn't exist. It was like acute injury, good healing, full recovery, and back to peak performance. Whereas when I did the generalist training, we trained more hours because we had to like the upskilling was like endless because you can't just be super strong. You have to be super flexible and super fast and super acrobatic and appear to be super like meditative, even though we in the beginning we didn't have the internal component. So the to-do list was endless and it was all the shoulds. In fighting, you you reflect back on where you were deficient in a match and you like hone in on that, and the rest you kind of maintain it. Whereas with the generalist stuff, this like ticking the boxes and being the best in every department was completely unsustainable. So in fighting, we probably did like 4 to 7 hours a day of training with a big break in the middle. With the movement stuff, we were doing like 6 to 10 hours a day with some break, um, on some pretty extreme diets as well.
Mm.
And we got one full rest day per week. But this was like year by year was like the same. And if you wanted to take more rest or something like that, it was like, but that's wrong. So I started to get these like chronic niggles, the things that I was like, how come when I'm like getting kicked in the head and slammed on the floor, I was fine, but with this like really good mobility stuff and bulletproofing the joints on the rings and on the floor, my body just felt like increasingly shitty. I was I became a very impressive physical specimen. Like I could display really cool skills, like I don't know, ring routines and stalter presses and basic capoeira movements, solo like acrobatic type, flexibility, but it didn't feel good. And when I hit 30 years of age, it was like I didn't ever really care about numbers or age at all, but something absolutely switched and I burnt out And there was such a distaste. So all these skills that I was craving and like fearfully pursuing, like if I don't get it, I'm a inferior person. I have
Yep.
less value um in society, in this world. So it was like just this like pressure, and I burnt myself out physically, emotionally, mentally. And there was such a distaste. I was like, surely I'm not just like the handstand person or like this really strong, inspiring female movement teacher. Like there's more to life than this. But because I had immersed myself in a very tight school, like we all ended up moving in the same way, eating the same way, dressing the same way, thinking in the same way, reading the same books. And that creeped me out because underneath my compliant, fearful, non-confrontational um, aspect is a very curious, rebellious person. So I was so dissatisfied with this, and I realized I had to change something. So I went off on my own, and that was absolutely terrifying and way harder than I anticipated. Um, I had also maybe a year or a year and a half or so before deciding to make this change, I had met my first spiritual teacher, who was my father's teacher. Um, and my father was really hoping that I would start on this internal path. This was Leandro. He was an artist, a shaman, fourth way practitioner. And when Leandro looked at me, he immediately saw me. It was the one of the first times, maybe the first time in my life, I felt truly, fully seen. So not like the gymnastics coach who saw potential, but he really saw me exactly, like no masks, the deeper aspect of what my heart was feeling and experiencing and the state I was in. And he said, you know, this young woman will be going down this path, but now is not the time and no one can make her. She still has so much to learn through the physical practices. She is evolving through them, and the other part will come later. And I felt so like seen and liberated, and that's like deep gratitude for him announcing this to my father. So it's like I got permission from you know myself. Uh, uh, and he said, but I will leave you with one thing, because I said, I do want something. So I know I'm not going to sit for meditation each day, but I do crave something still. So the lazy way in, right? And he said, practice self-inquiry. So throughout the day, ask, who is experiencing this? Who am I? So I started to do that. And with some of the really scary aspects of the training or experiences that we had with the movement practice, I would draw on that. And it would suddenly like liberate me from being immersed in the fear of the scary movement or of, I don't know, being stuck in a sauna for like recovery sessions that we had and stuff like that. So, or breath holds that were forced like underwater. So I was like in those moments of fear, I would draw on this self-inquiry. And over time, I was able to do it a bit more, even in the waking state. But it wasn't until I hit this like identity crisis at 30, where I was like, I hate everything I have been doing for the past, not past decade, but like at least the past like 4 or 5 years. But there was such a fear. I thought, but if I can't do this stuff, like if I let it go, then I will have no value. And I said, so I have to let it go because it's terrifying and I need to let this part of my ego die. And it was so brutal. I lost so many students. My my friends and community disappeared overnight.
I think this was about when I met you, right? Or very close to. This was yeah, when we first crossed paths, and I remember you just in that pressure cooker of that decision. Um, and also just like cheering. I was like, "Yay, go Soici!" It was such a cool thing to see because that's not an easy decision to make, to let go of something like that. But for people listening, this is like one of the things I really want to hone in on, because so many people still have this, right? This idea that if I just perform enough and if I just upskill enough and if I just get enough skill, I'll be a worthy human being.
Yeah.
And like kind of tied with that is that anyone who doesn't upskill is an unworthy human being. So they're all a bunch of losers and plebs that I don't want to have, I'm just going to look down my nose at them while simultaneously feeling that I'm never good enough. So this is not only not a path to cultivation, except through a meltdown like this. It can bring this around, but you don't have to do it that way, right? You can get the orientation a little more clean from the start. And this is a little bit what I was talking with Joe about. It's like kind of in our time in the last the maybe 10 years ago era, we were just learning by exploding ourselves and trial and error and doing just having a crack and finding out the hard way that that's not a good way. And maybe that was necessary for us to pass on those lessons to the next generation, right? But these days there's too much stuff going on. There's too many people claiming these exact things. If you just upskill, you'll become the worthy one. And I heartily recommend anyone listening to really, really like dig into these motivations and discover, like Soichi was saying, which ones are coming from fear and which ones are coming from curiosity, and follow the curiosity. Really follow the curiosity from now. Don't wait, because the longer it goes, the harder the meltdown, the kind of confrontation becomes. So yeah, I think you're such a good example of this. At the same time, and this was also another topic I had with Joe, is like not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, because all of that discipline and craziness did something really cool for you, right? It's
Yeah.
transformed you in a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, this is really valuable advice. I hope that the listeners can really like tap in and feel into that. And this is not just limited to physical skills. Like you and I happen to be movement practitioners and teachers, and like gone down the bodily path. But you know, I think support is so important, right? So when we enter something from a place of fear, it's such a primitive fear is like the most primitive, the original kind of like parent of all the difficult emotions. And it's such a strong driver. So knowing this stuff is not enough, right? Like I think usually support is needed. Growing up, I internalized this message from the world that I don't belong here. I'm not worthy. I need to earn and prove
Mm.
some value here. So I happened to be um, going like resonating with the physical path, but it could be financial, right? How much money or how many nice things do I need to own to have a sense of like I belong, I have value, I can contribute something. Or it could be what any identification,
How
right?
many
Or
enlightenment experiences I've had, can get way to that as well, right? Get into that
how many?
spiritual enlightenment experiences. Like,
Yeah, I'm the greatest guru here.
yeah, yeah,
Like
it's the same thing, right? It's the same underlying pattern.
yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter if it's like physical, intellectual, spiritual, emotional. I'm the best healer on the planet. I have the most Shakti, blah, blah, blah. Uh, so from that place, it takes like so much self-reflection and courage and honesty to confront that, because the world is just tantalizing us. They're like, no, no, trust us. Like, of course, if you have a little more financial stability, you're gonna be good. Or if you unlock this mobility, your hip pain's gonna go away. Or you do the breath work and your emotional problems are solved. Like all this like marketing bullshit that we get. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's
No
easy.
bulletproof joints don't exist, everyone.
Yeah, trust. Yeah. Anyway, that's yeah. We're not going down that rabbit hole. Um. So it's like support is really needed. Like when you said like we met around that time that I was in the pressure cooker. And by the way, I knew I was entering the fire, but in my mind, I had placed the condition as like, I am brave. I got this. And in a few weeks' time, I'm gonna come out better. That happened like 4 years later. So the pressure cooker, I was like, holy shit, I'm so humbled by life. Um, it takes time. But honestly, without the support, like I then found my first spiritual teacher was Leandro, but I didn't have that many encounters with him. It was on and off for many years until he passed away. But I met my meditation teacher, Rajiv ji, in India. And with that, initially I asked him for advice because he gave good life advice a couple of times. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want advice to solve my problems and diminish my suffering. I want to start a path. I'm ready to dive in. So what Leandro said I would be doing, that time came then when I realized how meaningless and unfulfilling everything I'd been doing in life was and how lost I was. I was like, I don't think it's outside because I had the success that I wanted more than I had dreamed of. When I was at my peak physical capabilities, I was like, I built a name as a teacher. Students were coming in. I was increasing my price. There was a waiting list. So I was like, yeah, this is like what I wanted. And when I got it, I was so empty. And um yeah, I was like, okay, I think it's good I got it. That I could see it's not where I need to be. Not that those things are not important. I think like now it's coming back full circle. Like you say, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. All of them are important. But I started internal practices diligently, and I did throw the baby out with the bathwater. I stopped doing not all, but much of my physical practices, and my health got worse. But I was much more peaceful, and I started cultivating internally. And before I lose that point that I was making earlier about support is so important. So when we met, you mentioned already just now how you were cheering me on from outside, right? And I felt that from all my new friends in Australia, and I was baffled. I was like, these people don't realize that I'm nothing. Like, I don't know why they see something in me that is ahead of me that I don't experience. So I was very grateful, but also not able to fully receive it. But I needed it. I absolutely needed it. And I had friends who were like, come teach a workshop at my facility and I'll give you 100% of what comes in. And I was like, super imposter syndrome, right? So I would give my absolute best and it was never good enough. And everyone loved what I was offering, but I was like, it can't be real. um, but the support, like just this like true friendship, true community, unconditional acceptance and nurturing were like even when I would feel like I was failing or not doing well, the experience was very safe. And I had, you know, mentors that would support me on my personal journey, not just mentors who wanted me to fit into the image they wanted of me, and friends that would support. And I was no longer afraid of competitors or people who would want to become enemies, which are few, but they have come up here and there. Just, I think, being human, that does arise. And just being like, it's okay to be seen in a bad light or to not be approved of. Um, and if the person has that, like, this is years later, experience feeling compassion towards that. We don't have to be, there's so much there for everyone that we don't need to compete. And I found, like, especially in Australia, more than other countries I've lived in, and I've lived in 8 different countries, so it's a really, like, nice perspective to have these, that there's such a healthy competition, like, we can have our businesses next to each other and really push them. But if someone comes in um to my class, and let's say now I'm doing a lot of, like, fighting monkey, playful things, and restorative movements and longevity practices, and then internal practices coming from traditional internal yoga, not asana, and also Gurdjieff teachings. If they come to learn from me and I see that their temperament is much more suited to, like, a calisthenics place or a hip hop place, then I'm like, part of my duty as a facilitator is to help people to make personal progress. If it involves me, wonderful. And I don't know how long that will last. Maybe it's like a couple of weeks, or maybe it's like the next 40 years. But if it doesn't involve me and I have an idea of where you could get, your growth from, there's a duty and a joy in sending you, in connecting you there. And I learned this from friends like yourself, and, Simon, Joe, like, Dave, my friend Nick, in the South Coast now, the surfer with the triplets, like, just having this, like, abundant, open, confident mindset that we're all playing our specific roles, and that's free from fear. Not always completely free from fear. For myself, it absolutely comes up in different times, in different areas.
I think the difference is that you're not free from it, but you're cognizant of it, right? So it doesn't become the hidden driving force. It's like it's often a driving force. You're like, yep, that's fear driving that, and nothing I can do about that.
Yeah,
But it doesn't be like I'm doing this because I really want to do it, and it's definitely not coming for fear, even though it secretly is. That
yeah,
can
yeah,
kind of melt away to some degree. At the same time, every time you think you're not in the fear, there's secretly fear there. So there's always that, like, almost like that vigilance that it could still be operating, right? And you kind of keep
yeah.
the antennas out for spotting a sign.
I like that. So, like, we're not denying um fear or pretending it's not there, but we are aware of it and know how to work with it so that
Mm.
we still have choice and it is not driving us. It doesn't, like, dictate the you know yeah, there's like a behavioral flexibility there. There's choice, basically. When we're in the fear, we feel like we don't have choice.
Yeah,
Um
and even worse, when we're in the fear and don't know it, we definitely don't have choice because we just have no idea that it's operating all our decisions to do anything right.
yeah, 100%. And I think that when that comes up, which it will come up again, even though we are, like, waking up in different ways, catching it much quicker. Like, "Oh, I slipped into that." And I love, like, um, Gabor Mate, how he calls his modality is compassionate inquiry, because inquiry can be really brutal. And just like you sizzle even more in the inquiry, but it can also come from a place where it really is, it is a compassionate inquiry. So there's a acceptance and patience, and like it's okay, or like there's like a almost like a bit of a self-parenting aspect happening. Like, yeah, I was the frightened child, which is so normal, but I can work with that and it's okay. I don't need to be here. I should be here. Kinda.
Yeah. Those shoulds kind of melt away, right? To a big degree.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also transmits to others, right? Like there's like less um rigid expectation and judgment and criticism for others, because we like that came up in your podcast with Joe too, right? We're like, wait, we see these aspects that are in ourselves in others, and it's coming from a place of understanding and compassion, um that's also like grounded. It's not just like love and peace for all, like everything's fine, like not that stuff there. um yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's really cool. So I guess like, yeah, I like to like jump all over the constellations, see, but I do want to bring it back to you asked about like, you know practice and how the journey has evolved over time. So I'd say it started with a mix of fear and curiosity, but a lot more curiosity, especially as a young child. And then after the fighting era, it went like 99% into fear. And then it shifted to curiosity. So when I started back, like, let me explore, how do I want to do this movement thing? It's gonna be different, and I gotta find my way. And I'm not trusting of teachers now, but I still recognize that mentors are absolutely important.
Yeah.
There's like the difference between a guide who shares where they're further ahead on that area from, or a dictator, right? And I'm glad I've had all kinds of teachers, so I can experientially discern.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not at all anti-guru. I mean,
Well, the thing I look out for, and what's become really apparent in myself, especially as I left the school I was part of, which was not too long ago, or a year and a half or less than, um, was and I had a habit of doing this, right? I gave away my agency to the people I thought were superior, right? I just gave it to them. Anything they said must have outweighed anything I said, no matter what it was. And when I look back at some of the discussions, I'm like, they were wrong. Like, easily half the time, easily half, right? I should have stayed with my gut instinct or my actual experience, which outweighed them on some of these topics. And just because they were better than me in one field doesn't mean they're better than me in all the fields.
yeah,
We each have our body of wisdom and our body of knowledge from our life, and that shouldn't be disregarded, right? So keep your agency. I say to my students all the time, because you can see them like trying to give it to me. I'm like, no, you keep it back. And I think, yeah, I think a good teacher will help facilitate this, right? Whereas this kind of nasty guru type will actually lean on getting more of that agency
yes,
and drawing it in. And some people are just going to have to go through that to learn how it is. But again, if you can avoid that from earlier, it'll save you a lot of hassle to have a better mentor, who helps you keep your own agency and actually grow it and get that trust deeper and deeper in yourself. So when you come and try to throw it away, they just swat it straight back at you. And
yeah,
and that's also a hard lesson, right? Because then you start being responsible. I'm responsible for myself, not I can't just be like, well, I have no responsibility here because teacher says I should do this, so I do that like a good lemming.
robot. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This is so important. And the teachers I have now, like Carol, my Gurdjieff teacher, and Joseph and Linda from Fighting Monkey, they are in constant dialogue, and they want questions and challenges so that they can keep growing. And it's like this constant feedback. They're so authentic and honest, but absolute like geniuses in their field. But it's like it's alive. It's not like I'm here and you're gonna just receive this. And they want like you to contribute to the knowledge base and grow. And there's like a very firm but nurturing hand there, and mirror. So like, because I think like it can be common for people who have had experiences like you and I have had, that then go like, I will never trust a teacher again. Everyone is corrupt and power hungry. I'm on my own. This is a solo journey. And maybe it can work for the rare person, but I think that we're like entering this uncharted territory, uh, uh, full of like things that we don't know how to handle, and we want to move on a certain path. So the guides are important, but our own discernment and not giving away agency, not giving away our power, just blind faith and uh, lack of responsibility. I think that like these are really important points. Um, so on this journey, I then, pushed away the physical practices, did a lot of internal practices, and then started to venture into like, I want to be creative. That's important. And if I start at a really like kaka level, but it's coming genuinely from me, that is so much better than that like perfectly polished, shiny, sexy stuff I was doing before. But it was just like I was like mechanically um being stamped on. And I was like, that's not, I'm just robotically doing this. Like any robot or person who does the reps will be able to do this.
And now the robots can actually do it better than us. The robots are tumbling and stuff. It's just, yeah.
Exactly. So I started to go down that route, and in time over the years, I started to find the way, and I feel in a really good space that is not a rigid school anymore. I have like mentors, peers, friends, people that reflect back, and I don't see it as movement practice or internal practice, but integrative life practices. And I've started to bring in all the goodness that I've had. Like, um, I regained an appreciation for like body weight strength training, because in times of crisis that I've had, being displaced, losing my job, losing marriage, having to like start afresh in a new city with no support network multiple times, when I've been able to just do like simple movements that make me feel like interconnected and strong and stable, it has a very good effect on my entire system. I'm like, oh, strength training can be healing. It's not about showing how cool tricks I can do or a number of how heavy I can lift. But like, if I'm feeling beaten up by life and I don't want to go back and do martial arts and get punched in the face still, like, I'm like, I can feel that like on the rings, and like I can support my body and push past discomfort. So then it's like a metaphor for like, okay, you lost your job. There's like this root inside that's sturdy. And it doesn't require like the same energy as a creativity does. Creativity kind of will flow out either when it's like really melancholic or really present and inspired and stable. But when it's like in that in between phase, it's like, I don't want to create. I'm exhausted. Like I am learning everything anew and creating every second of my life. I don't feel like scheduling an hour to then improvise something, so bringing that in. And then I brought anthropology in as well, which is so cool. And I'm like, oh, that's something that most other movement teachers aren't doing, but like, because I happen to have a degree in that. So bringing in like um, embodied theories of globalization and how that affects our lives. Food. So food is another area. When I started training wushu at 15, I also started cooking hours each day. I love cooking, and it's like my absolute hobby because I don't do it for money. I do it only when I want, how I want.
Yeah, and you'll find amazing.
I look forward to our cook up again. So yeah, like I love cooking. So as like there's I can transfer, these like knowledge strands from different areas. And someone that helped me to like make this connection was Josef Bartz in Berlin when he did a podcast a few years ago. He's like, how has pottery helped your movement practice? Because I was doing pottery when I was in Sydney. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I was like, but more than pottery, like, yeah, pottery I did for like, what, a year and a half or something. But cooking I've been doing for like 20 years. So how do I like transfer the knowledge from one area I know really well into another? And in I did a private intensive in Hobart just before leaving Tasmania to come to Barbados. And in that intensive, like I had us go to the farmer's market and I was like, we're going to practice anthropology. You're going to talk to the vendors. You're going to like work with the food. And we went to like really nice farm to table restaurants
Yeah, cool.
for a pleasurable experience, but also educational because it's like, are you connecting with environment or do you just like, go for a hike or, buy things without really understanding like their lineage. So anthropology has come in different ways. Martial arts with like roughhousing play, but also more the attitude,
Yeah.
the mindset.
That the
So
the, the martial thing's really interesting, right? This kind of pinged when you were describing how internally beneficial that process, like fights were, and I, martial arts is its own political beast. Does it work in the streets? All of this nonsense. And I very quickly realized that I'm not a martial artist in the sense of a fighter, right?
mm,
I've been in one fight in my whole life. I've rarely sparred freely. I've done loads and loads of martial drills, right? But never put it into much application. I can really count on my hands how many times I've, strapped on gloves and pads and just gone at it with someone. Um, but the drills I still find exceptionally useful from a cultivation perspective because even simple things like the amount of students I've got who are scared to use their power, right? They're
yeah,
scared to actually just punch someone. And I've trained enough iron shirt that most people can thump me in the body as hard as they want. It's not really going to hurt me. Like it'll get a bruise at worst. There's a few exceptions. Adrian, please don't hit me again. That was no, he can hit me a lot, but that's disgusting. Um, and I'll bring Adrian on the podcast at some point because he's fantastic. But yeah, anyway, the iron shirt, it's really like I'll go to people, I'm like, just hit me in the chest. You can hit me as hard as you can. It's not going to hurt me. And they're like, "Ugh," and like jump back from it. And it's like, and to coach them through that capacity to kind of be okay with expressing their power themselves.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the reverse too, to be on the receiving end and not get too bothered by it, because often with these punches, like the fear is far worse than the physical damage, right? If you've got a head guard on, if you've got gloves on and you get thumped in the head, it kind of hurts a bit. If
yeah,
I have no gloves on and I thump you in the arm or hit you on the forearm or kick you in the leg, you're gonna have a bruise. You're gonna maybe
yeah,
have this kind of like sore feeling for a day or two. That's not something to wreck your day, right? But until you experience this, the fear is way worse, right? So when you're not getting punched, you're like, but if I get punched, what if? And there's this like anxiety just goes everywhere. And you can almost punch that anxiety out of someone if you do it at the right level, right? If you
Yeah,
if
the right level is so
build it
key.
up slowly and get them used to it and teach them viscerally that they're not actually in danger and actually they're quite, um,
Yeah.
what's the word, like, anti-fragile, quite robust,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's going to not only not get weaker and not damage you, you're going to get stronger from it.
Yeah. And I want to add to that when there is this body work, it doesn't matter if it's, like a fight or Krav Maga or the, martial drills, when there's two bodies coming together to have some kind of uh non-gentle contact,
Mhm.
right? We really like an experience that may sound paradoxical to someone who's not done this is developing so much empathy
Mm.
because you feel and your communication skills absolutely change. So someone who's never um hit has no idea of how it feels for the other person. So it's you often get like beginners are the ones who injure everyone, right? You either get like the one who's like, oh, I don't want to hurt you, and because they don't have a gauge, it's almost like you're either like at 100 or 0.
Yeah.
But there's and they're like, well, if I do 100, I don't want to hurt you, and that's such a like natural thing, or at least for me, it resonates. The other one is I don't know how it feels. So I'm just gonna hit, and I think it's probably kind of gentle, but it was actually 100. And
Yeah, yeah.
oh, you fell over. Like I would have beginners literally, often like young women, and they would like just sometimes I don't know where their mind would be. I'd be like holding the pads on my left side, and they kick me on the right side of my back and full power. So I'll kind of like collapse and like have a moment to breathe and stand back up. And they're like, "Oh, but you're a fighter." And I'm like, "But I'm human. I feel pain."
Yeah, yeah.
And on the what part of the big red pads did you not see that you're not here to kick me? So they just don't know. And then when they get hit, it could be you have the ox who doesn't feel anything or who's like, yeah, give me more. And that they may be like a good candidate to become a fighter if they get into it. Or you have the one who's like flinching like crazy and emotionally crushed at the smallest type of impact. So as you learn, you build it up like in the right way with the right dosage in a safe environment and show them how anti-fragile they really are. And you also are both ways. Then over time, you're like, okay, now we have some basic sparring technique or body drill. How about say we go 60% and you can both do that? Or mm, or you know what, like I really need to be pushed. Are you up for going 90%? Like let's go rough today. And you can meet that. Oh, I have my period and my boyfriend dumped me, so I'm a little bit down. Can we do the same drills, but we just go 15% today? But we still do the same thing. So you sense through touch, through observing their face, their breathing, their body language. It's like it just changes your relationship to other humans, become so much more sensitive to what you give and take, and you give what you're prepared to receive, and there's the upside of the same coin.
Mhm. And this thing, like this sensitivity you're talking about, like as you get more developed in this stuff, you stop needing to verbalize it, right? You can just
Oh
come in
yeah.
contact and you just read it. Oh, this is 40%. And you just stay there, right? And then
Yes.
the person gets more comfortable and it lifts a bit. Okay, cool, we go up. And then if you need to take it down, you just back off a bit. And if they're also sensitive, they kind of bring it down too, right? So that's that empathetic connection that stops needing people to like yap about it all the time
Yeah.
because it
So
gets very visceral.
practitioners that practice together or coaches with their disciples, when they're experienced, you rarely hear talking.
Yeah.
Like when I would be preparing for a fight with my Thai boxing coach, when I joined the gym, he would say like jab, two kicks, cross hook, cross, uppercut, blah blah blah. I want a back elbow, I want a front elbow. But after a few weeks, there's no talking. And I know not just the movement or the sequence, but the number he wants me to. There's this like, and it appears telepathic, but it's not. It's just like such attunement.
Yes.
Uh, and I
And it's
think,
visceral body language, right? And that gets a kind of charge and tone in it. And so what I kind of want to emphasize for the people who haven't experienced this, right, and maybe going like, why martial arts? Why would I bother internal cultivation by whacking people really hard? Actually, that like tones a lot of stuff in your life. If you're in a room and say you work in an office and you're in a boardroom full of executives, and like these boardrooms tend to be like half of the people are bullies, right? And they're just pushing your buttons and they're just being jerks. That tone of that changes dramatically when you don't think, but you know someone can hit you really hard and you'll be okay,
yeah,
right? Physically. And you also know you can hit really hard and it's going to do something, right?
yeah,
And if you can feel that, you walk into that room and you will pick up who can take a hit in the room. You will just feel
yeah.
it, right?
I
You'll
love
just be
that. I love
like,
that.
and you walk in and all the bullies can't take a hit, for sure. None of the
Yeah,
bullies can take a hit. And so when they start bullying at you, you're just unfazed by it because the worst that's going to happen if you stand up to them is it's going to escalate to physical violence and they're in
which
a
you're
bad
okay
state then, yeah, right, which you're okay with. So, and again, it doesn't have to get to full on Thai, like street fighting
with.
boxing.
Yeah, yeah,
This state will arise just by having smart partner training, like you're talking about, like just some contact
yeah.
that is slowly graded up in a very intelligent and safe way.
Yeah, and it's an internal feeling. It's nothing
Yes.
physical
Yes.
whatsoever. Like
Mhm.
you're not gonna end up in a brawl in the
No, no, no,
meeting
not at all.
room.
What you will feel is more comfortable saying your piece, saying, no, that's garbage. We shouldn't do that. That's insane. You know, you'll stand up for yourself a lot more. And that's the cultivation part, right? That's living truly to what you want to express in the world and actually doing it, following it through.
Yeah. And I want to add that I actually, one of my favorite posts, well, I'm tooting my own horn here, I made with a brief clip of part of my world title fight,
Mhm.
um, was called responding rather than reacting,
Mhm.
and how martial arts like can teach that. Because reacting would be like, oh, he's bullying, I'm so uncomfortable, I have to withdraw or submit, or like, fuck you, man, who are you, like,
Yeah, yeah.
but like if you have that like inner calm, you can like see clearly, right? Like
Mhm.
a one fighter, a Persian fighter in Hong Kong, he said like, you know, even your eyes when you're sparring, they're they can't be fully open, but you absolutely cannot shut them. So it's like you're looking through a sandstorm in the desert, and there's like a calm clarity there, and then you can respond uh consciously, right? It's not a reactive thing that's free from emotional charge and anger, fear, feeling like I must put a boundary because this is not okay. And you're just able to engage. And like you say, like, hey, you call out the facts of why it's not resonating or it's not going to work, or
Mhm.
you meet them. So it develops like a superpower for life. And so right now I'm super interested in life practices.
Mm.
The physical practices support that.
Yeah.
The body is important because if we don't like take care and strengthen it, it either way it's gonna deteriorate and die, right?
Mhm.
But we have so much we can contribute to how that happens.
Yeah, we can treat it with some respect, right? Instead of just flogging it like a dead horse.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not like, yeah, we don't want to flog it like a dead horse. We don't want to neglect it. We just like want to take care of it and cultivate it. Uh, because our body is also our mind. Just as in the way like our living space is also a reflection of our internal state. So like I use that. I would say like, oh, if this is off with my body or my body's feeling really vibrant, it gives me a feedback of where I'm at. If my room is really messy, I don't go in with judgment and go like, oh, I'm such a slob. I go like, interesting, good information,
Yeah.
and maybe if I tidy my room, it will like have an effect on the other things, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah, yeah, these things can all resonate, and this is the thing that I'm constantly, like, emphasizing, the connection to what is, not to the skill set, right? Because when you're in that skill set mode, it's never arriving. It's always just over there, right? And particularly when you get into internal stuff, you've got like grounding and connection and, more calm and all these kind of things. That can just become the next thing that's just not quite good enough. And just when I get better at that, it just becomes another thing that's just over the hill. Um, and so it can kind of go sour in a way if you don't have this idea of bringing the connection back to now. So being connected to now can mean like, oh, I'm a bit ungrounded today. Oh, right. That's no problem. That's like, it's not about the grounding being more epic than everyone and being the superior person with better grounding, right? It's more about there's the reality of your grounding and there's your idea and the knowledge of your grounding, and they're kind of linked up now. They're on the same page rather than being
Yeah,
in two different places,
yeah,
which can
yeah,
easily be like, wow, I'm a mess today. And like, let's connect to that. Okay, I'm a complete mess and it's not
totally.
even getting better, right? That can be really connected. That can be super connected. And being the shit hot, like doing every skill perfect and looking like you have the perfect life can be totally disconnected as well.
Yeah, and I think we both have such an intimate experience with this.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I have a one memory that stuck with me, and I've said this story a million times, but back in the day, the muscle up was kind of a more rare skill than it is today. Like 12-year-olds do it these days, and no one cares. But, for people who don't know, the muscle up is a skill on rings usually. It can be done on a bar as well, where you start in a hang and you do a pull up, and then you go all the way through into a dip and press yourself up until your arms are straight, supporting on the rings. And when I was first in the movement crowd, people were like, "Oh, can everyone even learn the muscle up? Maybe it's only for special people." Like, it was this weird skill, and I had some charge in my mind. That was one of those, if I get the muscle up, then everything will get better somehow, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
charge was there, and I was like going after it and training it. And I remember so clearly the day I got it. I was at the park in Canberra. I went through the muscle up. I had that little yes, I got it, like that little explosion of celebration and elation. And then I walked to the shops, and not a single thing changed about that walk. I just walked to the shops and like, this is exactly the same. And I talked to the people and I was, kind of a bit annoyed with the guy who was being an idiot, and like nothing changed. It was so the same. It was shocking. I was just
yeah.
like, this didn't do anything. Like, all I can do is this stupid move now. And
What a blessing that you built this shop quickly, not like 4 years later of millions of muscle ups with 10 kilos strapped in.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, I was just like, what the why am I doing this? And some people, what I realized after a long reflection, because at the start I'm just like, it's all stupid, put it in the bin. But now when I look back, like, some people have a real passion for pursuing that stuff. Some people find an art in it, a creativity that really speaks to their heart. And I do not want to discourage these people at all and say you shouldn't be doing muscle ups because they're dumb. Do it from the heart, please, 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 please.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
there are a lot of people who have the same charge that I had, where somehow a muscle up or a planche or a lever or splits or a handstand or one hand, whatever the skill is, or dantian or pungjin, whatever it is going to like solve your life problems and somehow make them all go away. And it's just not going to happen. So if you give that up now, life will be better.
Yeah,
Then you can
yeah,
pursue them just for the fun and the curiosity of seeing where those skills go, right? It's a different
totally.
tone and you can engage with that.
And the same for like, okay, you bought your second house or you got the nice car or
Mhm.
you you've got the spouse plus the kid plus the dog
Yeah.
these are all again like important parts of our worldly life, but if we attach ourselves to like identify with them and put like a sense of self-worth and identify with the personalities, then that is limited and guaranteed to bring suffering because everything's subject to change. And another really core part of these life practices for me with my composition makes it so that the internal practices and physical practices are the main ones, but they come out in different, like it can be any combination. It doesn't have to be this, although I think they are generally universally valid as well, because we do have bodies and spirits and they both need cultivation. um, but I use all these practices, whether it's anthropology, whether it's movement, whether it's meditation, and maybe more importantly is like the waking state self-observation practice, so that I can catch my ingrained unconscious habits and break free from them. Not I have to eliminate the habit, but having a choice of that so that it's not directing me. And that's the main thing. So it doesn't matter if it's a muscle up or breathing in the spine and meditation, or yesterday I had such a magical moment that brought me fully present. Was I went free diving and I made eye contact with a conch shell. I was like, I didn't even know they had eyes. Like, I didn't even know if they were eyes, but these two things came out and we met, and then it kind of retreated. But there was this, like, it was maybe like 1 second connection and brought me fully present. So like that's not like, I guess you could say it's a breaking of conditioning. It opened up my eyes to something new, right? Because without something new, it's not that you have to have the new experience, it's that the eyes drop that veil of the old stuff. So that's also where I consciously invite like my teachers and peers and everything I engage with, all the practices, connection with environment, self-observation, so that I can see my sleepy habitual limitations and then work on them, put pressure on them so that I can be more present and open up my eyes more, uh, and have like develop behavioral flexibility, not just physical flexibility, right? But behavioral flexibility is so much more important for me. Like for aging, I think people's bodies become stiff because their minds are stiff. They like habitual creatures, and I think like that can be really lightened up, and not from a self-punishing perspective, but a really playful one. So it's like the worlds are all coming together. I'm like, wait, I can play in this, I am um a particle that's an extension of God, of creation itself. Like my little speck can play its part to like break itself free and engage in life in a joyful way. It's not always joyful, and I totally embrace suffering. Like it's such a familiar relative, but there can be simultaneously like that curiosity and joyful strength moving there. Yeah. So I guess that's where it really lands, like for me, where I'm at now, where everything's coming together, and there's no mistakes or regrets. I'm grateful for every single experience, regardless of if it took a long time for me to get there, or it was a bad choice for a while, or it was a great celebration. They're all really important. So even I guess for the listeners, like maybe they're like, oh, but I I can't like take or give any hits, and I only want to do like a one-arm handstand because I want Instagram followers. That is, if that's part of the journey, that is totally cool. As long as, well, I mean, I'm not putting conditions, but hopefully it's just one of the many stepping stones towards your evolution. So it's not
It
like
will be.
we
It has to be if
yeah,
it's there, right? Um,
yeah,
and at the same time, the I find the role of a teacher is like a clue giver, right?
yes,
It's like, here's a clue. Go look over there. Maybe there's something interesting for you there, right? And suddenly you can just have that shift of perspective that, like, I thought I should be going this way, but they're saying go over there. It's more interesting.
try,
And
right?
well, that's all you have, right? You just got to try it and see if it's for you, and if it's not, go back the way you were going, right?
Yeah.
And if anything, like, learning what not to do is a powerful, powerful tool, right? And maybe you and I have indulged in that tool a little too much,
Oh
because
yeah.
for the amount of practice I've done, I'm not a particularly proficient technician in the stuff I do. People see my skills and like, oh, amazing. But if you compare the hours I put in to someone who's put in like half the hours and is like three times better than me at all of it, it's like, on that level of the people who train the hours I do, I'm not skilled. And I don't mind that, because my skill set has actually been this huge blunder, which is like, now I just teach, don't do any of that. You know,
Mm,
that's
mm.
here's what I'm doing this. Yeah, did that and that didn't work either. We need to go this
Yeah,
way.
you
And that,
save them a lot of
yes,
troubles,
yeah.
because you experience them, and that's also where I see, like, okay, when I have some kind of crisis, health, relationship, finance, that it's not just there for my own evolution, but through
Mm,
the experience of learning to overcome these struggles, I'm then in a position to just
yeah.
you know be a for support and give clues
Mhm.
and save people from some of them, not save them, but like point to them, like saying, like, I know this looks this way, but it may not actually like serve you
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
Try another way. So,
Mhm.
and I think as teachers, that's a kind of like responsibility and duty that we take on, right,
Mhm.
over the years. And I also want to say, like, I think your perspective of um not being like talented at the things you're doing is precisely because you know that world really well. So like as a
Mm.
beginner, we go like, oh yeah, I don't really know anything, and then you go like, oh, I'm pretty good. Like I know so
Yeah, yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah,
Like a teenager, they know everything, right?
yeah,
And then as you stay longer in something and you experience that universe, you're like, yeah, I'm pretty proficient, but I know what this universe looks like. So I'm
yeah, yeah.
really like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
in the
there's always someone you come and you go, "Hey, try this," and like in 2 weeks they've
really,
gotten what you've taken
really,
like 6 years, and you're like,
yeah,
"Whoa, those people exist." And you run into more and more and more of them, right? And they just
totally.
there there's this really interesting, right? Neither one is good, because those people never are good teachers. Because if they say,
Yeah.
someone says, "How did I do that?" "Well, I just did it and it worked."
Just do it.
You just do it. But I can't. But I just did it and it worked, so you should just do it too, and you work it out, and
Yeah.
that never goes good. So, like, often the teachers aren't actually usually as proficiently technical as the
Yeah.
really, like, star performers, right?
It's a
Uh,
different skill. I often give the example, Usain Bolt's coach doesn't run faster than Usain Bolt.
mm,
It's like,
yeah,
that's not his job. He's
yeah,
not his competitor, he's his
yeah,
coach.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I think we've been going for a while, so I think this might be a
Yeah.
nice time to kind of bring it back to something, and what I wanna bring it back to is that, with all of this ethic experience that you've had, you're, mm, maybe now more back in the teaching realm, after a kind of small hiatus, and you're doing a lot of online stuff. In particular, these, like, I haven't actually gotten along to one yet, but it's on a to-do list along with a million other things I keep saying I'm going to do and haven't gotten around to yet. But your classes are like this creative, physical, exploration-y kind of flavor that you were talking about. And I've done some workshops with Soisci, and she is a phenomenal teacher, and it's so much fun. Like, everyone leaves the classes with a huge smile on their face. And so Maybe you can talk a bit about that and tell people, I don't know when they're going to listen to this. Maybe it's like 2 years from now, but maybe you're still doing that stuff. So do your sales pitch about your classes and online offerings and the things you're doing at this point in time.
Cool. So I'm based in Barbados and mostly doing stuff online right now. I offer some private like mentoring for the right alignment. So like I do give like a discovery call if it's someone that I don't know, so we can see if we align. And that will be on like integrative life practices. So I don't know what I'm gonna give them until I meet them. And it may be like largely internal practices, or it may be more physical or other things. And I give longevity classes, which are they each have different themes. So I'll do terms, like a 4-week term, or sometimes pop up, and I announce the theme as I give them. A lot of them are very playful, although because it's online and solo, it's not as like extremely fun as when we do like in-person, workshops and classes. But still, it's just to really get into the body and clear up the channels and have like to move as yourself, to discover how you like to move as you, because we learn so many awesome things, but like we don't necessarily know how we would want to move, right? Like here in the Caribbean, dancing is a big thing and it's beautiful, but people also just kind of all dance in the same way to the same beat, and there's like a style, right? Uh, so it's more just like how can we free it up and not worry about how it appears aesthetically, and allow the body to express. And I'll do things like that mimic nature, or work to music, or feeling, stillness practices. And then my a lot of my work is very much inspired by fighting monkey work. So there's like the zero forms, the coordinations, some of the games. I also make things up. I share things I've learned from you, from Simon, from different friends. It's like a fruit salad, right? Uh, this term, which we have 3 weeks left, it's every Tuesday afternoon for Barbados. It's the first season that I'm going fully intuitive. So I have no plan,
Nice.
and we meet and we just practice. So the first class, like some of the students were doing privates, and also I've based on how I've been feeling. There is often like a collective thing happening, regardless of geography, of life chapter, of season, like physical season. I just felt to do very much internal healing, nurturing, building connectivity and openness in the joints, in the breathing. And that was the first of its kind. And we even did like a guided meditation, not by me, at the end. But some of them are like high energy and like, so this term, you don't know what you're gonna get, which is a very Soisci style of in-person thing.
Yes.
But otherwise I announce, and it's generally like restorative type, a mix of inner and outer, but probably like 70% physical flavor to the classes, and playful would be the main things. And then I also offer occasional like meditation workshops, which are like a couple of hours long, and I go mostly towards like Vedic type concepts and practices, but that's also evolving. So you don't, I'll announce what I'm going to offer, but you don't know what you're getting until then.
Excellent. So I'll put all the links for that stuff in the show notes for people who like are hearing this and are getting that little internal call, like, ooh, that sounds like it would be something I really want to do, right? When that curiosity like comes to life, then click on the show notes, click on the links, get in touch with Soisci, get into one of her classes. You will not regret it. Soisci is fantastic as a teacher, obviously coming with so much skill from an epic background of all sorts of high level performance, but now with this really lovely, soft, playful flavor involved. So yeah, I can really, really highly recommend it with all of my heart, and I will make sure everyone has the links they need to do that. I also want to, before I forget, get that link to that article you mentioned, like halfway through the talk, with the clip of you boxing about
Oh,
responding rather
it's
than
just the
reacting.
Instagram post, but yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I'll put it in the show notes as well, so people can read that. So
Great.
yeah, so make sure you check the show
I
notes and get the links.
yeah.
It has been so nice chatting. I've heard parts of your story before, but it was really cool to go into more depth today. And I suspect we'll definitely have you back on the show sharing more of your wisdom at some point. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Just truly deeply delightful. Yeah, I really appreciate you, and yeah, just really happy.
Cool. Well, that's all, folks. I'm going to end this now. So I hope you all have a nice week, and I will see you in the next week or two with another episode. Also flying by the seat of my pants, so no idea what that will be about, but we will see when that arrives. So I'll see you then.